All right, let's talk about Falstad. Let's talk about Falstad. All right. So in this one, obviously, you guys know for the last 2 seasons, I've had probably about a 70% win rate on Falstad. I think he's one of the best heroes. Between this account and the other account, it's like 70% between 2 seasons. I think he is one of the best. But so global heroes in every meta have always been intended to not have dominant team fighting. In order to have a global, you have to be able to give up something else, right? You can't just be like, I've got the best damage, I've got the best, wave clear, I've got the best global. Like, you can't have that, right? So Falstad has to be able to find ways to manipulate those situations. And somebody had asked me the question is, does my map awareness or knowledge, is that the reason why maybe I'm better at Falstad or perceived to be better? And I can understand where that comes in. But I really think it's a matter of utilizing your wave clear and utilizing your minimap. If you're not already looking at your minimap, heroes like Abathur and Falstad can help you improve in that department because you don't want to die in the solo lane, and you should always be looking at your minimap as a result. Does my team need me? Does my team not need me? That's actually the hardest part about playing a global is how if I'm early, I miss out on maybe a crucial talent. If I'm late, my team dies and then I get pinged because I'm there late. It's such a delicate balance that it makes global heroes really hard to play because you want to be there for your team, but at the same time, you know the impact you can have elsewhere. So those decision makings are oftentimes the hardest ones, and I think that comes from a lot of experience. Trying to figure out like what is the timing, how much can you keep an eye on things. So we'll talk about some of those key things to look out for, but I want to talk about the talents in particular. One, Gathering Storm. Don't pick it. No matter how much you want to pick it, don't pick it. Unless you're playing ARAMs, don't pick it. Don't pick it. Don't pick it. Don't pick it. So Falstad has a pretty unique situation where his good talents are all single target damage talents, and he's got one ability that can be upgraded to an AoE ability, and that's at level 7. But the de facto number one right now is Wingman. Now, recently they updated Seasoned Marksman to be on a 30-second cooldown. This is much better when you double soak, but your wave clears pretty subpar until level 7. But Wingman's normally going to be better. This single target damage ramps up really hard in the late game. It makes you a great late game hero. And to get to the late game, you have global control, you have Mighty Gust, you have things like that. Wingman is something that I pick about 90% of the time. Seasoned Marksman is really something that you're going to pick if the other team maybe has an Anubarak. Going against an Anubarak works good. Anubarak works really well against him because he's weak to auto attacks. He's a spell shield type hero. Seasoned Marksman not good against something like ETC with Block Party, even ETC in general. Not good against Johanna. But you start thinking about Anubarak, then you can start thinking about down the road, right, for other tanks, right? Diablo, for example, you can start to do that, but Wingman still works good there. The reason why you're going to pick Wingman is that you're 13. Your 13 is kind of the most crucial part. Hybrid Falstad builds, I am not a fan of at all. You're going to be doing a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And you need to commit one way or the other. So if you're picking Seasoned Marksman, you have to know that you're going Giant Killer at 13. Wingman gives you a tremendous amount of single target damage and a significant amount of pressure. This doesn't really, it's good, but it gets insanely better at 13. That's why you're going to pick Wingman. The 13 value on this is where it really shines. If you're going this and then you go Giant Killer at 13, you might as well not have picked Wingman. You'll get some bonus damage, but it's not that good, And so now you're getting about 125% here and 125% here instead of 200% in one place, right? So Wingman's going to be there. You want to focus on getting your waves, utilizing your global, and then getting these bribe stacks turned in. I shouldn't have to explain like where bribe stacks come in, but every now and again, if you're holding on to one, it's okay to go bribe one, do damage to the other. Makes it really easy to take different ones, prioritize that. Seasoned Marksman, again, I don't like this a lot, but it can work on certain maps where you're going against maybe a Diablo, Garrosh, even a Deathwing right now. I think a Deathwing Seasoned Marksman works good against that. You can A-move pretty well as Falstad. You can reposition really well as Falstad. You can isolate the enemy team by gusting away them, and since he's unstoppable. But Giant Killer is the reason you're going to pick Seasoned Marksman most of the time. There are people that will say a hybrid build. I'm just not a big fan of it. So at level 4, there's 2 talents here I think that are really good. If you are stuck in the solo lane, Hammer Gains is almost necessary. It does make it a little bit weird, right, if you go Hammer Gains when you're going W build. But Hammer Gains in this situation, you're like, all right, like how can I sustain in a lane, right? Hammer Gains gives you the ability to heal off of your auto attack damage. If you're going Seasoned Marksman, you're wanting to go Hammer Gains anyways. Updraft does have kind of a weird situation where it does work well against diving heroes like Genji, Nova if she's out there, because you do have this shield that doesn't go away, plus you have more range and you get a bigger shield. The fact that it doesn't go away is really good, but Hammer Gains to be able to stay in a fight, to be able to trade. This is a Seasoned Marksman talent or a solo lane talent, but even if you're in the solo lane, which I hope you're not as a Falstad, but Static Shield gain 4% of Falstad's maximum health after every Lightning Rod strike, lasts 4 seconds. Since you're going to be going into W talents, this only makes sense. So W build warrants this. Auto attack build, Hammer Gains, pretty natural synergy, makes sense. Now, here's the hardest decision you're going to have to make. Secret Weapon is a bit of a trap, right? If you're going Seasoned Marksman, I don't think this is a good talent most of the time. And by most of the time, I mean like 99% of the time. It's bad if you're auto attack. Boomerang gives you now the ability to burst damage somebody. You see the base damage on this, 165 damage. This gives you the ability to now add burst damage, but more importantly, wave clear. Now, W build, going full W build is really strong because this here, it increases the number of Lightning Rod strikes, which means more damage, especially at 13, but also its range. Its range here allows you to poke out certain heroes or stay on top of heroes that you otherwise couldn't, and makes this that much stronger. So the extra 2 strikes plus the range is normally the #1 reason why this is good. Boomerang, if you don't have a lot of wave clear on your team, maybe you're playing Alterac, maybe you're playing a bigger map like Cursed Hollow, getting charged up and all that stuff is great, but if you are late to fights, if you can't clear waves and you're not even getting stacks because you can't clear waves fast enough, it's tough. W build is the superior option in team fighting, but it does have to mean that you have enough wave clear from your team and enough wave clear overall to feel good about it, because Boomerang is the only way you have wave clear. Any other way, if you're going auto attack build, Boomerang 100%. If you're going W build, 75% of the time charged up, 25% of the time Boomerang. It really depends on what you need in that situation. If you're not getting stacks, remember this, if you're not getting stacks, those extra 2 Lightning Rod strikes and you're not getting stacks, you're not getting that much more value if you don't have stacks, and you can make up for some of that damage with Boomerang when you hit your priority target. Plus, it's an AoE ability as well, so you can get more value out of Boomerang. Plus, Boomerang works really well with Mighty Gust if you can gust them into a wall. Now, all of a sudden, you're hitting 3 people, 4 people potentially, and it's that much better. Level 10. If you're picking Hinterland's Blast, it's because you're selfish. It's bad, okay? It's bad. If you really want to win games, and if you want to win games a lot, Mighty Gust is 100% pick rate. There is zero reason why you ever want to pick Hinterland's Blast. Even if you have a Leo with Entomb and you think, all right, we're going to get the sick Entomb and everything like that, the damage that you're getting here, insignificant in the long run to what Mighty Gust can bring you. You can disengage from every single fight possible. It's a 60-second cooldown, so you have this basically every single team fight. You get the slow, you can reposition enemies, you can interrupt mosh pit, you can disrupt tanks, you can do different things. There's so many different things that you can do with Mighty Gust that make it very, very strong. Late game Mighty Gust with a wind tunnel, game-changing ability, one of the most broken level 20 upgrades in the game. To be able to have that, Mighty Gust just allows you to get away with so much more as a team. Again, Hinterland's Blast is a selfish pick, and it's a bad selfish pick. It's not like I'm selfish, I'm going to do damage. It's called, I could do more with my team with Mighty Gust, but I don't care. That's the mentality that you're having when you pick Mighty Gust or Hinterland's Blast. Mighty Gust has to be picked. On 60-second cooldown, there's nothing else. So you heard me talk about level 13 a little bit earlier. Flow Rider is if you go Q build, which is ARAMs. Other than that, there's no reason for this. If you go W at 1, 7, and 13, there's only like a 4-second cooldown from your W. If you get every single tick, you'll all of a sudden a few seconds later have another W. So it's not like it's on a long cooldown and you need Flow Rider. So if you're going W build, 100% Thunder Strikes at level 13. The 20% more damage each subsequent strike means that late game, 40, 50% bonus damage. You're doing 2,000 plus damage to a target between your W, your Q, and your autos. You're doing 2,000 to 3,000 damage potentially, depending on how high you have that scaled and how hard you're hitting. Giant Killer, this is the one I mentioned earlier. You don't want to go a hybrid build. If you're going a hybrid build, you might as well pick a different hero. If you're going Wingman and Boomerang and Giant Killer, you're basically getting a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and a little bit of this. You're not getting the main course, right? You're now getting a bunch of appetizers that are actually like this big, right? Like you don't want to do that. There are people that I have heard advocate for this, but Giant Killer 1.5% damage is not enough to justify that. If you're going auto attack build, it's because you're speccing into that to deal with that. At 16, there are people that like Afterburner just for the movement speed to move around a little bit. I'm of the mind that Crippling Hammer going from 25 to a 60% slow is actually pretty significant. If you're talking about a 2-second slow at 60%, you can W somebody, Q them, they can't walk away from you. All of a sudden, like you've hit them, maybe you've gone boomerang, maybe you've got this. You want to be able to get those extra ticks of your W in. Crippling Hammer means they can't walk just outside of range. If you went the extra range at level 7, and let's say you're trying to play cautious, you don't want to get caught in there, you can W now, you can Q them, and you can stay at a max range to where they can't trade with you. And a lot of that is very, very strong in that situation. Airy Gust, I'm not a big fan of this. I have seen people pick this with this build, but Q and E I think are really strong, but Q is going to be your number one pick no matter what. At level 20, there is absolutely nothing else you want to pick. Wind Tunnel here, 100%. Somebody might have posed the question, right? Like, what if I go auto attack build and I go secret weapon, then I can go Nexus Frenzy. At this point, you're getting 1.1 extra auto attack range and 20% increased attack speed. I think that equates to maybe 1 or 2 extra autos while that Q is out. And that's just going to be a couple hundred extra damage at most, right? Like, you're not going to get that much more. Even if you have 40 seasoned marksman stacks at that point, you're going to get 2 extra autos, maybe 3 extra autos in that situation. Like that doesn't mean more damage compared to what you could do with Wind Tunnel, what you can do and what your team can do. Wind Tunnel allows your team to do so much more. You can control bosses, you can defend cores, you can assault cores, you can push people into a corner and make game-changing plays, like everything else that you could possibly be doing. And it's just way, way too good to be picking up. And if you went Hinterland's Blast, first off, shame on you. Second off, then you can consider Epic Mount or Nexus Frenzy. Epic Mount is really strong, but just the idea of what this is one of the biggest upgrades in the entire game. This basically is like the game changer of everything you need to know. When it comes to the abilities, don't be afraid. Don't be that person that says Focus Morales, where you have to fly to the other side, gust the enemy into your team, and then try and focus Morales. Don't be that person. You can start to take 12 to 6. Like if the enemy team is fighting this way, you can take 12 to 6 engagements. You can take 2 to 8 engagements. You can find different ways to get involved. If the enemy team's here, you can gust them down into a corner. But you can focus a tank, right? One of the most bizarre mentalities in all of Heroes of the Storm is don't focus the tank. In reality, because you have the extra range, you can play this safely. You can poke out a tank with the best of them. Once you start to get 30-40%, tanks start to feel it late game. Once you start hitting them with that, all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, like I can't stand here. You get a second round on them, you can start melting anybody. It doesn't matter what anybody says. Don't be afraid to blow up tanks. Your team can do that. If your team is the full YOLO dive, then sure, whatever, try and follow up on that. But you also want to make sure if you have the extra range at 7, it does allow you to move in more aggressively. It allows you to build up that shield off of that. Boomerang, again, is another opportunity there. So there's different ways to manufacture damage, but you don't have to YOLO is Falstad. Too many people feel like you've got to make the epic play. You've got to get the big gust. You've got to do all this. When in reality, gusting 2 people into a corner or against a wall is more than enough. Don't forget that it doesn't just gust them away. It slows them by 40% for 4 seconds, right? That is not only a displacement, but it is a tremendous slow over a 4-second time period, which is actually really strong. So a lot of things to consider. Just try and target, use your hammering. If you use it as the minion wave is lining up, you can hit all the minions and on the way back. It's a good bad thing in that situation, because one, you're hitting all the minions, but also if you're hitting them in a straight line, it means that you're hitting them slightly on your opponent's side, and that also is slowing them down, which means that your minions are going to be pushed up, which means you're going to be further out in the lane. So make sure that you have eyes on the enemy team before you try and make those types of plays, or you feel confident with your positioning, so you don't get too far out into somebody's lane trying to hit those minions. You can always let them group up, hit 5 of the 7, hit maybe 6 of the 7 if you have a good angle and they've put in a different way. Lightning Rod, always good. Barrel Roll, it's kind of like every mobility in the game. You can use this defensively most of the time. You get a shield from this, which is also really good. But you can also reposition this. You can fly, you can E, you can gust. There's so many different ways to use Barrel Roll, but that's it. The hardest thing, again, with Falstad is simply knowing when to be there for your team, when not to be there for your team. A lot of that's going to come with experience, and trust me, even the best Falstad players are going to be there late. Some of them are going to be there early. Some of them are going to fly into the wrong spot, and they're going to have to gust just to save their life. It's going to happen, but those are the growing pains that you have to go through as Falstad to figure out, where can I be? How quickly can I be there? When do I need to be there? How much do I prioritize my own stacks? If you're just off in the lane stacking, you might as well be in a Zebo, and you might as well be telling your team, I'm going Hinterland's Blast, because that's a selfish play. You need to be there for your team. You need to utilize your global. Don't be late. And if you're late, don't be too late. If you're early, that's fine. But Falstad right now in the current meta, the way things are going, his wave clear, his global presence, and mighty gust are some of the absolute most amazing things in the game that you should be utilizing using Falstad. And hey, maybe hopefully you have as much success as I have to climb the ranks over the last 2 seasons. So that's Falstad.